He had survived wars, bullets, and battlefields. But nothing prepared James Walker for the enemy that would strip him of everything. Not with a gun, but with an email. In just a few clicks, a man who gave his life to protect America lost the very benefits he earned by bleeding for it. His story isn't just heartbreaking, it's terrifying, because what happened to James had happened to anyone watching this video right now. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us keep bringing you chilling, true stories like this one. Stories that warn, teach, and protect. Now sit back, because this is a story of how a decorated soldier was ambushed, not on the battlefield, but on the internet. James Walker was 62 years old, a retired American soldier who had given everything to his country. He wasn't the kind of man who bragged about his service. He carried himself quietly, like a man who had seen enough of life and death to understand that peace was the greatest luxury. After decades of service, including deployments that left scars both visible and invisible, James wanted what most veterans dream of: stability, his pension, his medical benefits, the promise his government made to him when he first put on the uniform. He lived modestly in a quiet suburb, the kind of neighborhood where the loudest sound was usually a lawnmower or kids playing in the distance. For James, mornings meant black coffee, reading the newspaper, and sometimes scrolling through his email on an old laptop. Technology wasn't his specialty, but he used it just enough to stay in touch with family and to handle his bills. But that ordinary routine became the very trap that would change his life forever. It was a Thursday afternoon. James was going through his inbox when he saw it. An email stamped with what looked like the official logo of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. The subject line read, "Verify your veteran benefits account." The message claimed that due to routine security upgrades, all veterans had to log in and verify their details. Failure to do so, it warned, could result in a delay of benefits. For James, whose medical expenses were starting to pile up, the idea of losing access to his benefits, even temporarily, was unthinkable. He clicked the link. The page that loaded looked identical to the official VA site. The banner, the colors, the login box, it all seemed real. Without hesitation, James typed in his social security number, date of birth, bank details, and login credentials. He thought he was doing the responsible thing, protecting his benefits. But in reality, James had just handed his life savings to cybercriminals on a silver platter. Behind that fake website was a network of criminals operating thousands of miles away. At the top of the chain was Igor Petrov, a 38-year-old hacker from Eastern Europe. Petrov wasn't some lone wolf in a basement. He was part of a sophisticated cybercrime ring. Petrov specialized in phishing, crafting websites and emails so convincing that even the most cautious people could be tricked. He knew his targets. Veterans were high on his list. Older, trusting, and dependent on digital systems they didn't always understand. But Petrov didn't operate alone. In the U.S., he had an accomplice. Linda Myers, a 29-year-old American working as what's known in cybercrime as a money mule. Her job was simple: receive stolen funds, withdraw them, and launder the money so it couldn't be traced back overseas. Together, Igor and Linda were predators. And James Walker? He was their prey. Within hours of James entering his information, the criminals rerouted his pension payments. His medical benefits were hijacked. By the time he realized something was wrong, his account had already been drained. Imagine the shock. One day, James was a proud veteran living on modest but steady benefits. The next, he was penniless, not because of reckless spending, not because of bad investments, but because he trusted an email that looked too real to doubt. James felt violated in a way the battlefield had never made him feel. He had faced enemies before, but those enemies were visible. You could see them, hear them, fight them. This one was invisible, faceless, and merciless. And here's the part that shook the nation. If someone like James, trained, disciplined, vigilant, could be tricked, then what chance did ordinary Americans have? What do you think so far? Could you or someone you know fall for an email like that? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. When James reported the theft, federal investigators quickly realized this was not an isolated case. Dozens of veterans had filed similar complaints in recent months. The details lined up. official-looking emails, fake login pages, and drain accounts. At first, investigators chased dead ends. The servers hosting the phishing sites were constantly moving. The emails were routed through layers of international addresses. For every clue they found, another door slammed shut. But then a break came, not overseas but on American soil. Banks flagged suspicious transfers moving through accounts registered under Linda Meyer's name. At first glance, Linda seemed ordinary. A young woman living in a small U.S. city, juggling multiple part-time jobs. But her account activity told another story. Large sums of money came in, only to be withdrawn in cash and wired overseas. The FBI moved in to investigate Linda. They tapped her phone, tracked her movements, and watched as she made late-night withdrawals at different ATMs. Slowly, a picture emerged. Linda wasn't just unlucky or naive. She was actively helping criminals funnel stolen money abroad. But what investigators didn't know was that Linda was more than just a mule. She was Igor Petrov's bridge into America, and her capture will be the key to bringing him down. Let's pause here to understand the people in this story. James Walker wasn't careless. He was trusting, like millions of Americans. He believed official emails were safe. His motive was simple: protect his benefits, protect his survival. Igor Petrov was driven by greed. To him, Americans weren't people, they were targets. Each login, each stolen dollar, was just part of a game of power and profit. Linda Myers was complicated. Some reports suggested she was lured by promises of quick money. Others hinted she might have been manipulated by Igor, someone she never even met in person but communicated with online. Whatever her reason, she chose to stay in the game. And the community? Outrage. News of James' case spread quickly among veterans groups. People who had already sacrificed so much of their country now felt abandoned and exposed to predators they couldn't see. This was no longer just James' story. It became a national conversation. How safe is anyone online when trust itself is the weapon? Investigators knew they had to act fast. If they could flip Linda Myers, convince her to cooperate, they might finally get to Igor Petrov. But Linda was stubborn. At first, she denied everything. She claimed she thought the money was from legitimate businesses. The FBI didn't buy it. They showed her evidence: phone record, transaction logs, surveillance footage of her at ATMs. The walls closed in. Finally, Linda cracked. She admitted she was working with Igor, though she had never seen his face. All their communication was through encrypted chats and burner emails. But she gave investigators something they desperately needed: Igor's digital fingerprints. Every hacker leaves a trail, no matter how careful or smart they think they are. And Igor's arrogance left just enough. Sit back, because what happened next would expose not just Igor's operation, but the shocking global web of cybercrime behind him. Armed with Linda Meyer's cooperation, investigators dug deep into Igor Petrov's digital trail. Igor thought he was untouchable. He hid behind layers of proxies, offshore servers, and fake identities. But cybercrime investigations are like peeling an onion, layer by layer, until you get to the core. Through Linda's chat history, the FBI identified Igor's handles, timestamps, and even his favorite operating hours. He often logged in during late evenings Eastern European time. That detail might sound small, but in the world of cyber forensics, time zones can betray you. Investigators cross-referenced his patterns with known hacker forums. Soon, a name surfaced in the dark corners of the internet: Spectre Wolf, Igor's alter ego. He had bragged online about targeting weak American systems and showed off screenshots of fake VA websites. Still, knowing his alias wasn't enough. They needed something concrete, something that tied Igor Petrov, the man, to Spectre Wolf, the hacker. The FBI crafted their own kind of phishing trap, this time for Igor. Using Linda as bait, they set up a fake opportunity: a new mule willing to move larger sums of money. Linda introduced a contact in a secure chat, while investigators watched every keystroke. Igor took the bait. Confident as ever, he sent detailed instructions, including routing numbers and a preferred offshore bank. That was his mistake. Banks cooperate internationally when it comes to fraud, and the trail led directly to accounts registered in his name. With evidence piling up, the U.S. government worked with European authorities to issue a warrant. Months of surveillance followed. Finally, in a cold dawn raid on an apartment in Bucharest, officers stormed in and found Igor hunched over his laptop, mid-conversation with another victim. The predator, who thought he could never be caught, was dragged out in handcuffs. Back in the United States, Linda Myers faced her own day in court. Prosecutors painted her as the bridge that allowed Igor's scheme to succeed. Defense attorneys argued she was manipulated, a pawn rather than a partner. Veterans like James sat in the gallery, watching closely. For them, this wasn't just about punishment. It was about acknowledgement. They wanted the justice system to show that their suffering mattered. Igor was extradited months later. His trial became headline news. Eastern European hacker drains U.S. veterans' pensions. In court, prosecutors revealed his arrogance, how he mocked Americans online, calling them easy targets. The jury didn't need convincing. Igor Petrov was found guilty on multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. His sentence: 25 years in federal prison. Linda, on the other hand, received a lighter sentence after cooperating. She spent 5 years behind bars, followed by supervised release. For James Walker, justice was bittersweet. Yes, the criminals were caught. Yes, the headlines warned the nation. But none of that brought back the money he lost, the security depended on, or the dignity that was stripped away with a single click. Veterans organizations rallied around him. Donations poured in. His story became a rallying cry for stronger protections against cybercrime. But the scars, financial and emotional, remained. James often said that this betrayal cut deeper than anything he experienced in combat. On the battlefield, you see your enemy. Online, your enemy hides behind a screen, pretending to be your ally. This tragedy is not just about James. It's about every American who checks their email, answers a call, or logs into a website thinking it's safe. Phishing scams are not random. They are targeted, calculated, and merciless. They prey on trust in institutions, trust in familiar logos, trust in the idea that this could never happen to me. Here's what we can all learn. Verify before you click. If you receive an email from a government agency or bank, don't click the link. Go directly to the official website by typing the address into your browser. Look closely. Phishing emails often have small errors, slightly misspelled addresses, off colors, or generic greetings like "Dear user." Two-factor authentication. Enable it wherever possible. Even if criminals steal your password, it's another barrier in their way. Report suspicious activity. Agencies like the FTC and FBI have hotlines for cybercrime. Reporting could save others from falling victim. James' story pushed lawmakers to demand stricter cybersecurity measures for veteran systems. It also highlighted a painful truth. Cybercrime is now a battlefield of its own. For hackers like Igor Petrov, geography doesn't matter. A soldier in America, a grandmother in Florida, a student in Texas, they're all just targets on a screen. And for mules like Linda, temptation can turn an ordinary life into a criminal partnership. The internet connects us, but it also exposes us. And until we learn to guard ourselves, tragedies like James will keep repeating. Imagine this: a decorated soldier standing in his quiet home, looking at the empty balance in his account, not because he lost a battle overseas, but because he clicked a link in an email that looked too real to doubt. That image is haunting, and it's why we tell these stories, so that you never become the next victim. If you stayed with us through this story, thank you. James Walker's experience is a reminder that cybercrime is not just numbers on a screen. It's lives destroyed, dignity stolen, and trust shattered. Please, take a moment to like this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And most importantly, subscribe to Bite Crimes. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you more chilling, educational, and eye-opening stories like this one. Because remember, on the internet, the battlefield is invisible, and the only armor we have is awareness.